The Exorcists are a loyalist chapter of the Adeptus Astartes created during the course of the 13th founding. The chapter boasts a long, complicated and frankly confusing history, due to the numerous contradicting sources regarding both their origins and genetic heritage. Some records state that the Exorcists were originally founded through a joint venture conducted between the Inquisition's Ordo Melius and the Ecclesiarchy, so as to create a chapter that specializes in combating against demonic entities. Others, however, claim that the chapter were initially established as a Codex-compliant Imperial Fist successor chapter, only to then, through a series of extraordinary events, inadvertently fall into their modern-day role of demon hunters. And yet others still maintain that the Exorcists are themselves the sole successor chapter of the legendary Grey Knights, a fact that, supposedly, is known only to the highest-ranking members of the Ordo Melius. Regardless, the Exorcists are proven time and time again to be uniquely adapted in combating against all things demonic, due in part to the chapter's unorthodox initiation rituals. Indeed, aspirant exorcists will be forced to undergo and endure demonic possession, a process known appropriately enough as demonic possession therapy, for upwards of 12 hours at a time, before such entities are forcibly exorcised from the aspirant's body and soul. However, the exact details of this possession therapy remain shrouded in confusion, due again to a number of contradicting sources, with some sources stating that the exorcisms are performed by a chapter librarian or sanctioned inquisitorial psyker, while others claim that it is the duty of the aspirant themselves to expel the demon from their being through nothing more than sheer force of will. In either case, those aspirants that successfully undergo possession therapy will demonstrate a greater resistance to the corrupting influence of chaos, in spite of the fact that such methods result in the chapter's warriors harboring intense physical and psychological scars. It is even said that an exorcist warrior who has completed their bouts of possession therapy is all but invisible to lesser demonic entities, though whether or not such claims are true, much like everything else regarding the chapter, is up for debate. However, not every prospective exorcist will succeed in these trials, and those that fail will either be executed or, more commonly, used as living prisons to house those demons employed by the chapter for future bouts of possession therapy. Because of this, the exorcists have been forced to adopt an extremely secretive nature, a necessity which only serves to make differentiating fact from fiction an extremely difficult, if not nigh impossible task. So, given the numerous contradicting records regarding the origins of the Exorcists, is there any way to determine the truth behind their creation and lineage? The only piece of information about the Exorcists that can be, for the most part, agreed upon by Imperial scholars as being completely factual is that the chapter was, as mentioned earlier, established during the course of the 13th founding. One potential explanation regarding the multiple contradicting origin stories of the Exorcists could be due to the possibility of one such account serving as the official backstory, with the chapter's true history being known only to certain high-ranking officials within the Imperial government. According to both issue 462 of White Dwarf magazine and the anthology book Successors, the Exorcists are explicitly stated to be an Imperial Fist successor chapter, and scions of the Primarch Rogel Dawn. With this in mind, it could be argued that the reason as to why the Exorcists are listed as being descended from Dornian stock, as opposed to being, say, a Grey Knight successor chapter, is solely as a, for want of a better term, cover story, due to the very existence of the Grey Knights being known only to a select few. While this would make some degree of sense, this idea is in itself contradicted by the chapter's Index Astartes article within the aforementioned issue of White Dwarf, which states that the Exorcists only learn of their true Dornian heritage upon being inducted into the First Company. Such an idea, in theory at least, is not entirely outside the realm of possibility, as there have been various documented instances within other chapters of warriors only learning of certain secrets upon their ascension to a certain rank. This is most notably demonstrated within the Unforgiven, the collective term given to the Dark Angels and their various successor chapters, who prior to the return of their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, would only learn the truth regarding the existence of the Fallen, those members of the original Dark Angels Legion that turned traitor during the Horus Heresy, upon being inducted into the ranks of the Deathwing or Raven Wing, the Unforgiven's equivalent to a Codex Chapter's first and second companies. But while the idea of only a select few of the chapter's warriors knowing the truth about their heritage may seem somewhat of a reasonable explanation, given the highly secretive nature of the Exorcists as a whole, considering the supposed identity of their primogenitors, it seems highly illogical to actively hide such a fact from the general public. After all, the Imperial Fists are commonly regarded as one of the most honoured and respected of all Space Marine chapters, due to not only their status as a first founding chapter, but also due to their actions during the events of the Horus Heresy, in where they defended the Imperial Throne World of Terror from the forces of the traitorous Warmaster, Horus Lupercal. If the Exorcists are indeed an Imperial Fist successor chapter, then it does seem very strange for all records regarding the chapter's lineage, as detailed within both Imperial Armor Volume 10 and the 10th edition Space Marine Codex, to remain not only unknown to Imperial archivists, but locked away behind an Inquisitorial seal. That being said, however, it does make sense for all details regarding the chapter's recruitment process, and in particular the utilization of demonic possession therapy, to remain effectively classified to all but the highest ranking members of the Inquisition, due to such methods being, to grossly understate, controversial. What also needs to be taken into account is the chapter's supposed connection to the Grey Knights. According to the short story Headhunted, the Exorcists not only have access to information and banishment rituals that are otherwise known only to the Grey Knights, but are even outright stated to be a Grey Knight successor chapter, as shown with the following passage in where Darian Roth, an Exorcist warrior seconded to the Death Watch, is tasked with monitoring the actions of the Death Spectre librarian, Leandro Karras.
As enigmatic as Sigma was, he was clearly no fool. Who better than an exorcist to watch over one such as Karras? Even the mighty Grey Knights from whose seed Routh's chapter had been born could hardly have been more suited to the task.
Given the fact that the very existence of the Grey Knights is one of the biggest kept secrets within the entire Imperium, if the Exorcists were indeed a Grey Knight successor chapter, then this would indeed explain as to why all records regarding the chapter's founding and lineage would be kept under lock and key. But seeing as how the Exorcists are said to only learn of their Dornian heritage upon being inducted into the First Company, could it be possible that the majority of the chapter's warriors are themselves under the false impression that their gene seed stocks are drawn from the same source as the Grey Knights? After all, the fact that the Exorcists and Grey Knights both know how to perform certain rituals, such as the Mortis Morgati Pretovo, with this particular example being a rite that is known only to these two chapters, could leave members of the Exorcists under the false impression of a shared lineage, a misconception that could very well be deliberately cultivated by the chapter's officers in order to help maintain the air of mystery and secrecy surrounding them, though there is no way of knowing for certain. While evidence certainly exists to support the idea of the Exorcists being descended from the Grey Knights, the main problem with such an idea lies in the fact that the Exorcists have an asset that the Grey Knights themselves lack: Primaris Marines. After all, the Grey Knights are one of the few chapters known to not utilize Primaris Marines in any capacity, and while the exact reason as to why is currently unknown, some have speculated that this is due to the unique gene seed source of the Grey Knights themselves, which is derived directly from the Emperor of Mankind's own genetic material, as opposed to that of a Primarch like with other chapters. As a result, the fact that the Exorcists are known to utilize Primaris Marines has led many to believe that this further proves that the two chapters cannot share any sort of genetic heritage. Or maybe the truth is that the Exorcists are descended from both the Grey Knights and the Imperial Fists. In this case, it's possible that firstborn Exorcist Marines, such as the aforementioned Darien Roth, were created from Grey Knight genetic stock, while the later Primaris Marines were developed via the utilization of gene seed derived from the Imperial Fists. If this were the case, then this would not only explain as to why certain Battle Brothers would only learn the truth about their genetic heritage upon reaching the ranks of the First Company, possibly as an attempt to try and help maintain some semblance of unity between the older Firstborn and newer Primaris Marines, but also as to why some of the chapter's warriors believe themselves to share the same bloodline as the Grey Knights. This would also explain as to why all records regarding the chapter's lineage would be kept under lock and key, ensuring that any knowledge regarding the use of Grey Knight's gene seed to create the original incarnation of the Exorcist chapter, and thus the very existence of the Grey Knights themselves, is kept on a strictly need-to-know basis. Ultimately, it would appear that any attempt to uncover the truth regarding the origins and lineage of the Exorcists is an exercise in futility, for the truth is merely just one of countless secrets harbored by the chapter, and one they will most likely never share with an outsider. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.